Did you know pretty clearly, because you have, obviously you experienced that pain point. Did you know who your ICP was going to be in the early days? Like, okay, we're going to go after these types of customers. I'm curious about that, especially when like you went to market.
Yeah, we did. We tried to keep it really simple. And so we were based not too far from here in Nolita, New York.
Yep.
And so we wanted to go after other companies that were in our backyard. So at the time, what was happening in New York, was the rise of all the direct-to-consumer companies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so, Glossier and Caraway and, all these companies were, a block or two away from us. They were all kind of in one little area. And so we would do events with them. We would try to get to know them. And we were trying to build a product for them. So we would talk to them and try to understand where their pain points were. How do we solve them? How do we build a great product for them? So that was where we started. We were just like, hey, like we want to, whatever is happening here in New York, we want to be supporting and be a part of because it's our backyard. We know this market. I grew up here. We're able to be the best option for folks in here. And as the market evolved in New York, and we evolved with it too. Now we have an office in San Francisco. We have folks, in a lot of different markets, but we still try to look at our backyard first. We're like, what's happening around us? How do we make sure that, that our products are able to solve problems for those entrepreneurs that are, in this great city?
Was that just intuitive to you to do events early on?
It was. I don't know. That's how I always saw things get started. When I was really young, I started a company that did concerts in New York City. This was my first attempt at entrepreneurship. Ooh. So, briefly lived, but I went out on a high note. I produced the first hip hop concert at Lincoln Center with Jay-Z and The Roots.
Wait, what?
We can talk about that later. But for me, yeah, it was, this is how you get stuff going, right? You figure out how to get people together. You create value through community. And then ultimately you can amplify that through marketing channels. But that's the easiest way to kind of get things going in a market where, people are pretty well networked and are, talking to each other.
That's just like a perfect example of the companies being like a reflection of their founder. I think like that community approach, because you have that background, makes so much more sense now because I was always thinking about that and knowing that you did that. I'm like, why? Because everyone doesn't think IRL right away.
Yeah, I think that it's a mistake. IRL is great. And one of our first hires was the head of community, and she did PR and she did community. And, we would start with just like really easy, fat, I'm at Mama Coffee Shop, come by, if you guys want to chat about e-commerce. Or we would do, events with VCs. Or I think being a founder can be a lonely journey, and especially in the early days, but really throughout. And so, one of the things we want to be able to do is bring them together. And I think this is something that, the older banks like SVB did pretty well back in the day. I think that, the technology side, I think there was a lot to be desired, but I think this is actually something that people really valued. And so we try to do that and really just turn it up to 10. I think we're the most active producer of startup events in the ecosystem, at least as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's great.
Fun.
Our team gets to meet customers every single day. Not only is it great from a business development perspective, but there's really no substitute for meeting with a customer face to face. I love talking to founders. I love talking to people that are starting companies. I always, start the conversation with, what are you building? Tell me about it. And for me, it's like I learned so much. I learned so much about what's happening in tech. I learned so much about, what is new, where are people, focusing their efforts. And more importantly, I learn about, what can we do as a financial platform to help them get there, get a little bit further, make things a little bit easier. So when we hear, hey, what's really valuable? Actually, like bringing us together is pretty valuable too. All right, we want to do more of that. Yeah.
With that context though, you're growing quickly, 2019, then it's March 2020, COVID hits.
Yeah.
You were doing all these events. You're doing all this in-person stuff. Then what?
So yeah, the good news was, we had all this stuff coming inbound to us. The bad news was, our kind of key growth strategy sort of stalled out. We tried a lot of stuff. None of them were as good as events. We kind of went back to that after, when the world opened back up. But yeah, we did a lot more content at the time. We still do a lot of content these days, but it was challenging.
So that shift, so going from events then to, you said content, what was that? Was that videos? Was that newsletters? Was that, what types of things did you switch to when you're like, wait, we can't do our bread and butter, which is events. We had to shift to something else. We have these resources. Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I think at first it was just dealing with inbound demand. So we weren't really doing that much marketing at the beginning of COVID because we were frankly just like inundated with customers.
Yeah.
A little bit later, it was, we were doing, more written content, more long form content. And then I was doing more media. And then we ultimately continued to develop other channels of growth, partnerships. And then, the world opened back up and we got back out there.
When the world opened up, again, like after that, so you go from in-person event strategy, then COVID hits, you're like no in-person, then it opens up again. Like, how are you prepared on like the in-person event side? You just like, double down again, or like what did that look like after?
Yeah, so the period, from COVID to post-COVID was a little rough. I don't know if any of you remember, virtual happy hours and webinars. They weren't nearly as fun. Not very satisfying. I think we did one of those and, called it a day.
Like, nah.
We were really excited when the world opened back up. And we started doing events with other companies based here in New York. I remember we did one with Olipop, the soda company, and that felt like the world had just opened back up. And all of a sudden, everybody, especially founders, wanted to be together, wanted to learn about how everyone else was doing, and we got right back on it and kept going.